Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
We're back at you in Gloves Off. I'm Professor Buitrón. I'm here with Sarah Patterson, the regional manager of the Father's Rights Movement. And we're touching base on a couple of bills that are being led by the House and why people are pro and why people are against it. Good evening, Sarah. How are we doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great. I was going to ask you, any news on the bill SB 104? 104, correct?
803. Our shared parenting bill is HB 803. So far, we had lots of great movement at the Capitol from what I'm hearing last week. Unfortunately, I was unable to really go participate. One pagers are being handed out. Lots of great conversations are happening. We are still meeting with representatives and legislators throughout the state of Texas via Zoom. So we've got really lots of great encouraging feedback coming back from those that were at the Capitol.
Okay. And how about opposition? Is it the same opposition that we've been getting before, or is it different now?
Well, I think here in Texas, we're making enough noise. We are seeing some more women's rights groups, one particular mom group. The leader of that group got on Facebook and posted a video about how terrible the bill was going to be and her thoughts in opposition. Again, all of the opposition statements are kind of assumptions. They are false statements. They are extremely misleading in the way in which they are presenting HB 803 and the shared parenting community as a whole.
Okay. Can you give us some examples and that go on to that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the great arguments that has come up is that shared parenting allows abusive parents to have equal access to the children. And that's actually not correct, because the way in which the law would be added to the family code, it only applies if you qualify for joint managerial conservator, which means that there's no allegations of abuse or any allegations have been proven false. If you have evidence of abuse, if there is anything of that nature, we have a completely different set of the family code in which the shared parenting would not be an option. So the only people who would even be allowed to elect shared parenting or start out in the middle at 50-50 would be fit, loving parents.
Absolutely. You see, there's a lot of misconceptions going on there. And one of the misconceptions that I hear a lot about is about child support. Is that argument still being brought up?
Yes, we often hear that the shared parenting community is, of course, nothing but a bunch of fathers who do not want to pay child support. The problem with that argument is that if you look at the Texas Family Code, child support and physical parenting time are in two separate sections. So in Texas, we have a flat rate child support in which it is made off of a flat percentage of the non-custodial parent's income. So it doesn't matter if that person has the child 60% of the time, 50% of the time, 20, 10, they're going to pay the exact same amount of child support. So at no point in time does the Texas Family Code state or allow for child support to be lessened unless upon by agreement by the parents based off of the overnights. Now, people like my family who do have a no child support order, we did that by mutual agreement because we feel, as a lot of the shared parenting community feels, and a lot of normal everyday people feel, that if you're going to have the child half the time, then that is your support. You are supporting them your half of the rent, your half of the food, your half of all of those other things that child support is supposed to cover for a child. Now, if there's a huge difference in your income, let's say that, mom is a multimillionaire and dad is a $15 an hour employee. Yeah, it makes sense that we may need to talk about that. But for the most part, it doesn't matter how anybody feels, or if we feel child support shouldn't be ordered. The actual family code doesn't take that into consideration. It's always going to be the same flat amount, regardless of parenting time.
Absolutely. And you see, that's a misconception that many people have. And that's the argument that I've heard for a while. And even lawyers come out and say that. You're like, really? You all should be the ones that know the law backwards and forwards, But again, I understand where they're coming from. They're trying to build a commotion to continue this in court and the battles and so on and so forth. But here's another argument, or that I hear. I don't know if it's much of an argument, is fathers can't be parents.
See, and scientifically and through studies, I think that, so right now, one of the big things in our country is believe the science, right? Well, then let's believe the science, everyone. Studies upon studies have been done about fatherlessness and about the father's roles in children's life. I mean, let's just consider some stats here for just a second. So 90% of runaways and homeless children are from fatherless homes. If you have a fatherless child, they are 60%. I'm sorry, that's backwards. If you have an involved father or a father in the home, they are 60% less likely to be suspended from school than a fatherless child, or a child whose father is considered fatherless when they have less than 34% of their time with them. They are 80% less likely to go to jail and serve time if they have an involved father. And they are 75% less likely to have a teen birth, whether that's, the male or female father or mother being the teen. Having an involved father is statistically proven to make them 75% less likely to have a teen birth. I don't think that anyone can argue with those statistics. Our children need their fathers. They need their mothers, yes, but we have proven over and over again that they need their fathers to an extent that the standard possession order just does not allow.
Absolutely. And you see, that's what people argue about, especially for 50-50, and that, the father should not have the same rights as moms and so on and so forth. And as I don't know, to me, I've seen both parents that are good, moms as well as fathers. And I've seen all types of homes. The one that the mom and father never got a divorce, lived together. And then you have the one that all of a sudden, the mom with whatever, the father's the one that raises the kids and they've come out good. The mom raises the kids, they both come out good. And I've seen all types all over the place, not only because of in family, but friends and people that you grow up with, just in the community. So all these allegations that they make against 50-50 should be stricken off, and people should reach out to groups like Father's Rights and so on and so forth, and the other groups that advocate this. And it's unfortunate. Here's the question I'm going to ask. Why do you think fathers always get attacked within the court?
Because I think currently, and this is my position as a woman, and I'm speaking for myself in this aspect. So as a female who came up, I was raised by a pretty powerful feminist movement. I was told I could do anything. I was also told I was a victim. Anytime a man was mean to me or rude to me, I should automatically go with the idea that he is sexist. I should also use my sex when it is convenient for me to get ahead, as being that in the family courts, you are the damsel in distress. You are the victim. You know, I have seen it over and over again in my personal life, where the aggressor in a domestic violence situation amongst either my family members or my friends were actually the female. I've actually been there when the cops have been called and the cops have said, hey, it's the chick, we're not doing anything. You know, just be lucky that we're not taking you, that she's saying that she's the one who was hitting you. Otherwise you'd be going to jail. There's a couple of stats that people don't really understand. And I'm probably getting off track here, Paul. I'm sorry, but you know how I get on the soapbox. So in the state of Texas, a 2019 document was released by the National Council for Domestic Violence. So in the state of Texas, 35.1% of males admitted to having some sort of physical aggression happen in their intimate relationship, meaning that they were the victim and that their partner was the aggressor. Only 34.5% of the women that were asked responded to that. So according to the National Council of Domestic Violence, men actually reported at 0.6% higher rate of being the victim of domestic violence than women in the state of Texas. So with that in mind, none of us think that way. So even I, who volunteer at the Father's Rights, and I'm mostly around a lot of men. Sometimes I even do it where I just make the assumption that the man is wrong. I just make the assumption that the woman is the nice, sweet, innocent one. It's been ingrained in our brains for so long, and it's just the way we are. We can't seem to pull back from that. A great example of that is Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. I mean, there is actual audio evidence of her admitting to being an aggressor, admitting to being guilty of domestic violence. And yet she's being celebrated. She is still being allowed to film her movies, and Johnny Depp has been fired from every one of his films. At some point in time, we have to realize that women are just as capable of lying. They're just as capable of being the aggressor. And we can't assume that a 200-year-old idea that they are the softer, gentler gender makes the difference here.
No, you're correct. We've all seen it. I've seen it here. You know, as you can tell in the background, you know, I've been teaching for a while, and I've been teaching self-defense for a lot of folks, in over 30 years. So I've had both situations. I've had women that have been abused that they need the help, and I've seen men that come in here, and you start seeing the scratches on their faces. You start seeing that and what happens, and you realize that they live in a violent situation. And a lot more it happens. You start seeing a lot more men just kind of humble down in those type of situations. Some of them are still married, and some of them are not, and it's unfortunate, but it does happen. And I don't care where the abuse comes from. A person should not live in an abusive relationship.
Right. And men have a very bad habit of not reporting the abuse, of not admitting to being the victim, because they've been conditioned that they can't be. So we have a lot of underreporting of that through the police department, with also the whole fact that a lot of the police departments don't take it seriously when the man is the victim like they do when the woman is the victim. We don't have domestic violence shelters geared toward men like we do for women. If a man is a victim of something like that and he needs to leave his home for his own safety, there's not a shelter he can go to. The majority of them will not allow men in their shelters at all because they are women's domestic violence shelters.
Mm-hmm. And you know, that's a problem, and you have that. And you see that in the court. The first thing, you know, the abuse towards that, the lies about that, the first thing they go in there, especially with the silver bullet that many attorneys use. All of a sudden, you have that abuse towards men, and there's nowhere to turn.
Right.
But folks like you and folks like others that are out there, have brought this out, and a lot more people are waking up to the fact that this exists. Now, back on the topic of the actual bill that's in at the House now, what needs to happen for this to move forward?
What we need to do is we need every person in the state of Texas that believe that Texas children's mental and physical and emotional health are the most important things. We need them calling their state House of Representative and their state senator and asking them to support HB 803. Or we also need senators to file a companion bill on the Senate side. It's really important that they hear from all of us, because these mom groups, they're out there, they're asking for their followers, no matter what state they're in, no matter what country they're in, they're out there asking them to call. I saw a threat to Representative Middleton, who filed the bill, about bombarding his office with demands and with things like that. So we want to make sure that we are not behaving in the same way that they are. We want to make sure that we are professional, that we are short, that we are considerate of their time. If you have the time to make an appointment to actually speak to the legislative director or your representative themselves, try to get an appointment, talk to them, make sure if you're telling your personal story that you're doing it without emotion, not to be like flat, dead, non-emotional robot, but don't allow your emotions, your anxiety, your anger, your frustration to show through. Just make sure that you are calm, collected, and that you are extremely professional and nice when you call and speak to these people. You can also email them. You can find out who your representative is on texas.gov if you don't happen to know who they are.
Yep, you're absolutely correct, and it needs to happen. It needs to happen now, because they haven't set up the committees as of yet. I think committees are going to be done next week, so it has to happen, because that's when everything is going to file through, and it's going to be very quick once that happens.
Yes.
And we have to be on top of that. There's other bills in there, but folks need to understand one thing: 50-50 literally stops parental alienation, and there's been a lot of people that have, over the decades, that have been abused through parent alienation. Some people might say that parental alienation is actually a form of child abuse. I'm with that. Okay, you have some other countries that claim it as such, and it's actually a criminal act to alienate a child from another parent, like in Brazil. And so we need to start learning from other countries of exactly what's going on, because 50-50 literally stops, of what I've seen, parental alienation. And and that's basically where we're at.
Yes. And another thing that I don't think that anybody considers about 50-50. So one of the main arguments is, of course, the one that we talked about earlier, about that it would allow abusers to be the parent of a child that they're abusing 50% of the time. But the thing of it is that we also need to consider about what it does for those children that are actually being abused. So if you say that, let's just go with a overly large percentage, just for the sake of argument. Let's say that 50% of the cases that are in the current Texas courts, one of the parents is abusive and the child is in danger. And let's say 50% of the current cases are either parents that, they could go on and co-parent just fine, that there are false allegations, but it's not something that they're really going to push if they have to so much testify, or if they're being held accountable for the silver bullet claims. If we can take those 50% away from the docket, and let's say, so we'll go with 100. So 100 per day a judge sees right now. If we can take 50 of those away, that judge now only has 50 that he needs to look at, that he's now going to have the time to really spend on looking at the evidence. on listening to the testimony, on making sure his focus are on those children who need the state of Texas to help them and one of their parents to escape an abusive situation. So why are we wanting to fight that? Why would a group of people who claim that they don't want this bill because it could give abusers access, why are they not yelling from the rooftops about how amazing it would be to pull all of these cases that don't need a judge's attention, put them at 50-50? There's no need to go back and forth. We don't need to file 8 times to hash out overnights or go from standard possession order to expanded standard. We don't need to have all of this. You guys are starting at 50-50. You couldn't move the ball anywhere during your first hearing. That's just where we're staying. If we could get rid of those people and give those judges those times, they would be saving so many more Texas kids. I cannot understand how people don't understand that, because right now our courts are just overwhelmed with these other cases. Same thing with parental alienation. It would give those judges time to look at those. So if you have a dad who's not seen their kid in 6 months because mom doesn't follow the order, one of the problems that we run into is judges do not have time to look at the evidence. They don't have time to review the stories. They don't have time to actually dig. If we give them that time and we take everybody else out that doesn't need to be there, we are saving more Texas children. We're saving their mental health. We're saving their emotional health. And yes, we're saving their physical health, because too many kids fall through the cracks right now because judges are overwhelmed. The court system is overwhelmed. And the concept and the idea right now with how the family code is set up is that if you make abuse claims and if you fight, then you get to keep the kids and there's nothing that's going to happen to you.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely correct. Because, but the thing is right now, folks, this bill is here. We need help. Folks that want to see 50-50, let's start calling our representatives. Let's start calling them. And once more, what's the name? What's the number of the bill?
It is HB 803, and it was filed by Representative Mays Middleton.
Okay. So if somebody wishes to get a hold of Father's Right movement, how can they do that?
We actually have a Texas page on Facebook, the Texas Fathers' Rights movement. We have an internal Facebook group that is private that you can join and kind of talk amongst yourselves. There's actually a Facebook group for HB 803 that gives daily updates to everyone. So definitely suggest going and following them. Americans for Equal Shared Parenting, Americans for Parental Equality, Dads for Equal Custody. We have so many groups in Texas. We are pushing out updates as much as we can. Find one of us and it'll lead you to the rest of us.
Absolutely. Sarah, once more, it's always a pleasure because you're always informing us that are lesser know what's going on. Number one, continue doing what you're doing. And a lot of blessings for you and the group. And let's keep this pushing forward, and we'll continue talking because this bill is on right now. So next week or the week after, we'll have you back again and tell us some more insights about where we're at.
Okay, well, hopefully I will get to be one of the boots on the ground very, very soon. I hate the fact that we're this far in and I haven't made it to the Capitol yet, but with everything that's going on, it just hasn't been possible for me. So I will make sure to let everybody who has been at the Capitol that we all appreciate them. And hopefully everybody gets their phone call in. Absolutely.
Once more, peace. And folks out there, let's call our representatives. Let's touch base on 50-50. And until next time, peace.
Today in America, more than 5.5 million men, women, and children train in a martial art regularly. Buitrón Academy has been serving Laredo for over 30 years now. Our adult classes are geared for producing the best in you, teaching you street-ready techniques. With the arts of Savate and Kinpo, you'll learn the traditions of these sciences of combat as passed down professor to student.
Hello everybody, my name is Senior Grandmaster Alfredo Bandalan, owner of BDP, Bandalan the Siparis. I'd like to say a few words on Grandmaster Buitrón. He's a man of great integrity, a man of great knowledge of martial art. He's a master of Savate and master of Eskrima. He's a man that can help you to become what you want to be. He's a man that teaches people how to be somebody in life, how to work the world, how to be happy in this world. He's a man that I can say holds many integrity as well as in martial art. But I'd like to say this man has a radio station, does hunting all over the world, and he works with all kind of people, all walks of life. All I want to say, that Buitrón is a man that can help people to be somebody in life. I'd like to say aloha, thank you.
I am Grandmaster Michael Buitrón of Original Hurones Criminal Federation here in Vallejo, California. Professor Buitrón is an accomplished martial artist who has developed an understanding that as a caretaker in our martial arts, it is his responsibility to keep the art alive and in depth. He acknowledged that it is the students that give the art life. I hold his friendship and his continuing accomplishments in the art in the most highest regard. Thank you.
Come train at the best kept secret of Laredo. Give us a call for your free evaluation at 956-401-4868 or check out our website at savate.biz. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook.